Hi everybody, coming at you live from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado. My name is Daniel Gray and I am the Trailer Park Prophet. Thank you very much for being here. This is the Hump Day with the Prophet show. And we're here every Wednesday just humping away, trying to figure out, what in the world is going on in this world. We try to follow some trends in society. We do all kinds of stuff here on Wednesday. Big day though. A lot going on in the world. I know I say that all the time, but it's really true. And in this internet age, there is so much information that we have available to us. And I know that you can kind of get overload. That can happen. And of course you can also get some bad information, and that's always a possibility in this information drenched world that we live in today. But really I'm overwhelmed about how much information is actually out there, and that we know more about what is going on in the world, our country, and our own communities in a timely fashion than at any other time in the history of humanity, and that's a big deal. Information is king.
You have information now, and more and you have both sides of the story, then you have the ability to make an informed decision, and in part that's power. It really is. And locally your power is even magnified more just because of your presence. That's where you are. I mean, you're able to look people right in the eye and express to them your feeling on any subject, local, national, or on the world. That's powerful. That deal where you're looking a person in the eye and you're saying, hey, I want you to vote for this or not vote for that, or vote for me or vote for my friend. Any kind of stuff like that is really the type of ground game, as they say in politics, that really wins elections. And that's something that the Republicans haven't been very good at. All right, moving on. The big story of the day is that our embassy was just attacked no, it wasn't attacked, excuse me. Let me back up here. The big news of the day is that the Israeli intelligence thwarted a attempted attack, a planned attack on our U.S. embassy in Tel Aviv. That's in Israel. And I got this news from Alan West, Congressman Alan West. He's a conservative. He's got his own website here, his own blog, and he's all high tech now. But he writes here, breaking news: Israel security has thwarted an Al-Qaeda terrorist plot to attack the U.S. embassy in Tel Aviv. First of all, hat tip to the Israeli security forces and their intel systems. Wonder if they had the data mine everyone in Israel to find out about the plot. But what has to really have President Obama angry is that these guys are opposed to playing along with his and the New York Times narrative that Al-Qaeda is decimated and on the run. Damn, those pesky, non-compliant Islamic terrorists taking over Fallujah and Ramadan, and now trying to blow up our embassy. I guess they're not happy with letting back the consulate in Gaza. I'm letting Iran have a nuclear weapon. Don't they know my poll numbers are tanking here? It's obvious what's going on with Islamic terrorists, Al-Qaeda et al. They don't like Obama because he's black. And again, that was a piece written by Alan West. And if you go to his website, Alan West, you can see some of his other musings. And you know, I mean, he's like a lot of these I guess he's called a blogger now. I'm not sure really what a blogger is, but I think this is as close to blogging as get. But you know, it's cool. I mean, he has the latest articles that he's following, like breaking news from Al-Qaeda in Tel Aviv doesn't like Obama because he's black. Okay, so he's pitching his own stuff. And then it says here's another story. Reverend Barber and the Negroes' loss of grievances. Taxpayer-funded food stamps for pot. What is going on in Colorado Springs? I wonder what that is about. Charlie Crist and the battle for Florida's soul. A lot is being made of what's going to happen in Florida in this upcoming 2014 election. And you know, with the pot in Colorado and all the other stuff going on in Colorado, but people are really wondering what's going to happen in Florida because they have so many people and so many electoral votes. And it looks like this guy Charlie Crist has resurfaced. He was the Democratic or the Republican governor in Florida, and then he got beat, and then he turned to Democrat, and he got beat. But here he is hitting in the knee again. You know, it's interesting how these political actors are able to make yeah, Florida. A lot of people are watching Florida because, again, all those electoral votes. As Florida goes, so does the rest of the country, I think, is what a lot of these political types have been talking about. Let's see, what is this? This is kind of interesting. I want to say, I can't use some language.
Obama wasn't kidding when he said change has come to America.
Yeah, listen to this.
Today, this is a country that's very different from the original idea of America. The shining beacon of freedom has been replaced by dimly lit rooms filled with NSA agents snooping on your calls, your emails, every step you take online. Soon, some 30,000 domestic drones could fill American skies. It's likely your local police department will get one of them if they haven't already, paid in large part by Homeland Security grants. There are now more Americans in jail than there were people in the Soviet Union's concentration camps. Most government agencies, including the Department of Education, have their own SWAT team.
Alright, that's not going to work. That's breaking up. Anyways, that's on my Facebook page. Alright, cool. We don't need no stinking music. Alright, let's see, let's move on. I keep you know what, I see this post, it says 2 words Obama doesn't want you to know. One of Obama's former Secret Service agents recently smelled a rat. What he discovered inside our government was so devastating, he only saw one option, he quit. And I think this is the same guy who was with the Secret Service who ran for the U.S. Senate. But at any rate, this video keeps popping up, and I would have loved to have listened to it, but I didn't want to have to listen to it and then listen to it again with you. But, all right,
I guess the other big headline story, except for the thwarted Palestinian attack on our U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv, the number two story, as far as I'm concerned right now, is the unemployment rate in this country. And I know we talk about this an awful lot, but I got a picture here out in front of the Denver Rescue Mission, and it's a place where people go and you know, if they need help and don't have a place to stay, but the place is absolutely packed. There looks like about 100 people stand in front of the door, and if I remember correctly, how a lot of these rescue missions work is that you can't be there during the day. You got to go out on the street or go look for work, you know, basically, or go work and then come back at night, and then you can spend the night in the mission. But these people are lining up, and I think it's indicative of the Obama economy. And you know, I know we've shared this number with you before. 92 million Americans are not working. 92 million Americans are not working. Remember, we only have 325 million people in the whole country, and out of that 325 million people, only half of those are of working age, or roughly around there. So that's only, you know, I don't know if this is the case. I know it's not the case. I wanted to say I think we have more people not working than working. And I guess it's all how you look at the number. But when you look at the participation rate, and the participation rate is recognition of the number of people that are of working age and are of sound mind and body and can work. And I don't know exactly what, I know we have the lowest participation rate since the Great Depression. I know that much. And we know for sure that 92 million Americans are not working. I mean, we know that is a real number. And this number comes from Americans for Prosperity. And they ask the question, they say, how can we possibly have an unemployment rate of 6.7% when 92 million Americans are not working? And that's because, like we've said, the 6.7% is the U3 number, and the U6 number includes these people that aren't working or have stopped looking for work. And our unemployment, last time I saw, is closer to 12%, maybe even higher. I mean, I've seen accounts that the U6 number, or when you really include everyone that is of working age and ability that's not working or working part-time or working in just to have income possibility, that the actual unemployment number or the unemployment number is as high as 16%. Oh, I thought this was so funny today. My friend Rob, Hawaiian Rob, I got it from Hawaiian Rob, and I probably should give him credit, because maybe he made this up, because I've been talking a lot about how Obama isn't black, that he's mulatto, and, you know, because Obama lately has been playing the race card, claiming that the reason his poll numbers have gone down is because of more and more people turning racist on the president instead of just not appreciating his policies or his economy. But someone came up with the joke that Obama is a Halfrican. You know, he's not white, he's not black. I mean, he's a mulatto, but he could all be thought of half African. And it says a Halfrican, Halfrican, Halfrican. President Obama is a Halfrican. All right, hold on a second here. I got to open up a window. Remember, this is citizen journalism. Oh my God. I'm definitely having some problems with my wood stove. I got a little leak, man. My eyes are all fogged up. And I think this may have been going on for quite a while. All right, we're going to do, well, no, let's do this story first, since we were talking about President Obama saying his poll numbers have been dropping because people are being more racist. So now we get this new Gallup poll that comes out, and we find out now that Obama's approval sinks to all-time low among liberals. And this comes from, this article is written by a CNSnews.com reporter. President Barack Obama's job approval sunk to an all-time low among liberal polls.
So that's a big drop. Last week's approval of 62% was the lowest job approval Obama has ever gotten from liberals in the Gallup poll.
And it shows the graph right here, you know, Obama's approval rating amongst liberals. And back in 2008, his approval rating was at like 90%. And now it shows that, you know, like the article says, it's down by 60. So that's 30 point drop. And by the way, it was high during the election cycle of 2012. And the article goes on to say, before last week, the lowest Obama job approval had ever dropped among liberals surveyed by Gallup was 65%. The level it hit in a week of December 16th through the 22nd of 2013. Obama's job approval among liberals peaked at 92% in the week of May 4th through the 10th of 2009. Now, overall, 40% of the 3,563 people surveyed by Gallup in the week of January 13th through the 19th said they approved of the job Obama was doing as president. 52% said they disapproved. So that's a bad sign there. He's upside down on the big number. Whereas 44% of moderates said they approved of the job Obama was doing as president, and 22% of conservatives. Now that really surprises me, that 22% of conservatives. I see a disconnect here. I don't see how you can consider yourself a conservative and look at the Obama job approval or your own viewpoint of that and think they're doing it, and think the president's doing a good job. I find that unbelievable. But, you know, Gallup is probably one of the more trusted polling agencies, and, you know, they're really concise in putting these polls together, and they want to know, okay, where is such and such with conservatives, with moderates, with liberals. So I guess it's true. I'm surprised. You know, and maybe next time I talk to somebody and they say, well, you know what, I'm a conservative and I don't believe them because of one of their stances on one thing or another, I'll remind myself of this Gallup poll, and you know, 22% of conservatives think the president's doing a good job. Well, all I can say is they either don't want to come across as racist because the president's black, or they sincerely feel that Obama's doing a good job, or as good a job as he can. I don't know. It's baffling. As party affiliation, though, 75% of Democrats last week approved of the job Obama was doing. 75% of Democrats. Okay, now that seems about right. 32% of independents approved, and 11% of Republicans approved. So there we go. We got all this contrast within the two dynamic ideologies. When party affiliation and ideology were combined in Gallup's findings, 84% of self-described liberal Democrats approve of the job Obama was doing. Now, see, that makes sense. 71% of moderate Democrats
62% of conservative Democrats. Now, I was surprised to see that breakout. Conservative Democrats. 26% of pure independents. I thought that was a real interesting distinction. Pure independents. And 19% of liberal and moderate Republicans, and 8% of conservative Republicans. I mean, that's quite a mixed salad there. 37% of men said they approved of the job Obama was doing, while 43% of women
tell you that so you kind of know what was the big trending story during that time that Gallup was doing their polling. So, I mean, Gallup they're the best. Or they're one of the best. But at any rate, you know, of course, the headline is approval sinks to all-time low among liberals. And again, the numbers to remember are 71 approval rating of liberals of the job that President Obama has done, 71%, and the drop down to 62%. So almost a 10-point drop. On pretty short order, too. I mean, that was precipitous, as they say in polling. But we know it's only an indication, and we like reporting on it because it gives us an idea, okay, how's our president doing, and where's the country headed? It is a snapshot in time, all right? But it's done scientifically, and it gives us insight. And it also can demonstrate a trend. And really, if you think about it, we've been talking about Obama's poll numbers dropping for the last 6-7 months. So I'd have to say we may have a trend on our hands in terms of President Obama's popularity with the public. All right, this is kind of interesting story. I've never been on this blog before. It's called Culture Critic, and of course they spell culture and critic with a K. Kind of tedious and painful, but what are you going to do? Urban League study. Obviously they're liberal, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with being liberal. Just pointed it out to some of our newer members out there of the Trailer Park Profit Club. Part of the Trailer Park Urban League study. God, this number is a recipe for disaster. 92% of black teens in Chicago are unemployed. 92%. That is a recipe for disaster. And it adds a little impetus to people that think that the progressive socialists, are intentionally stressing the black community so that they eventually rise up and then they can be put down by martial law, you know. I mean, you hear that stuff, I hear it, I think, oh my God, that's crazy. But you're looking at this, how in the hell, with a half black man in the White House, can we have black teens unemployed to the tune of 92%? And blacks voted for Obama almost completely. Like 97% of blacks voted for Obama. And it's even worse. In the U.S., okay, Chicago's 92. Illinois, overall, 88% of black youth are unemployed. 88 across the state of Illinois. Barack Obama's home state, or one of them. And then overall in the United States, what do you think the unemployment number is for
unemployed black male teens all across the U.S. You got a number in your head? Well, I'm going to tell you, it's 83%. That's inexcusable. What the hell are these people thinking? It's like they want trouble. According to the Chicago Urban League, the unemployment situation for African American teens has gotten to the point of near hopelessness. The study released, the report by MyFox Chicago, says that a stunning 92% of all teens in the city of Chicago are currently unemployed. The study cites a steep decline in the number of available jobs in the city and the fact that adults are now taking the jobs that were once available to teens, such as flipping burgers and washing cars. So see, if people have to put food on the table, they will take almost any job. That's why that argument that we need illegals because they do the jobs other people won't do is not only is it racist, it's also not correct. It's a very shocking number. Like if anyone else were to see these numbers, hopefully they would come together. Like we need to do something, said Devontae King, one of the teens who earned less than $1,000 from his part-time job last year. The study says that across the nation, 17% of black males between the age of 16 and 19 had jobs. But the numbers dropped in Illinois to 12% and down to 8% in Chicago. This creates an economic crisis of major proportions since joblessness is a consistent factor in the high rate of violence in the city, like the knockout game, knocking out crackers. This was preventable. I'm telling you, this is a real problem and something that Obama has just refused to address. And it begs the question, why? Why has President Obama failed to address the unemployment rate in black communities? It goes on to say, we do the studies because I don't think most people realize how bad the problem is and understand why they should be a priority issue. They think, oh, summer jobs for kids, that's a nice thing. It's not a nice thing, it's a required thing. President of the Chicago Urban League, Andrew Soup, said Diane Lydier, who works with the city to help teens find jobs, says it's important that we start investing in our young people to help them out. I mean, exactly. Quote, nothing is being invested to give these young people whose jobs are being taken, nothing is being done to create jobs for them. Dr. Boyce Latkins, a finance professor, says that the government must get involved to help teens, and parents must do so as well. She goes on to say, she says, black teens, especially males, are the most neglected group of people in America, says Dr. Watkins. If we were white, this would be recognized as a crisis that it is. An idle mind is the devil's workshop, and nothing good happens when we condemn our children to sit around with nothing to do. And they finish up here, it says, if you say nothing in politics, you get nothing, says Dr. Watkins. Boy, that's for sure. The people in Washington won't care about what happens to your child if you don't make them. Secondly, black people must learn to create their own jobs. That's the only way to brighten up the economic future, and that's a good point, too. But, you know, it reminds me, going back to Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail that I read on Monday, and that is that you got to get out there and make people know that this is an issue. This is a restatement of that. Because if you don't stand up and speak up loud and proud, you're not going to get the attention of the political actors in your neighborhood or community. But, you know, this is nothing short of, you know, it's neglect. What we're doing to the black youth in America. I mean, we're setting them up to fail. And that's a horrible thing. It really is a horrible thing. It just creates more despair and breaks more spirit. It's just not a good thing. And it really saddens me. And it just seems like President Obama and the progressive socialist status, that they're good with it. They don't even really care. I mean, with all the trillions that we've racked up in national debt during the national debt.
His office is going to be closer to 10 or 11 trillion. And none of that money could be used to create jobs for inner city black kids. I mean, a jobs program in Chicago could cost $1 billion. That's a drop in the bucket compared to what we've spent. God knows where on green energies and increasing the size of the federal government by 24%. I mean, really, was that really a wise expenditure, increasing the size of the federal government by 24% like Barack Obama did? And that's why you can't help but ask yourself, well, a 92% unemployment rate for black people in Chicago and 88% unemployment rate for black males in the U.S., well, that's just acceptable. No problem. All right, this article is written by a guy named Ben Farmer. He's a defense correspondent. And this kind of wigged me out, and that's why I wanted to share it with you. And by the way, you're listening to the Trailer Park Prophet, broadcasting live from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado on Blog Talk Radio. My name is Daniel Gray. I am your host du jour, broadcasting live. Love it. Thanks a lot for being here. I also have a channel on YouTube if you want to pain yourself and have to look at me. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for going and looking at my YouTube, and also all of the hundreds and hundreds of people that go to Blog Talk Radio and download my show. I really appreciate it. And then I also want to say thank you very much to everybody that's been going to the Trailer Park Prophet Love Connection. I've been getting a lot of really good response to my Trailer Park Prophet Love Connection. And since I brought it up, if you are thinking about going to a foreign country to meet foreign women, I highly recommend Trailer Park Prophet Love Connection. We have the best infrastructure of international dating on the planet. Every country that we're based in, we have a home office run by local people, and these local people screen the women to make sure that they're not scam artists or prostitutes, and they set up a safe, clean, fun environment for men to meet hundreds and thousands of women all across South America, Asia, Europe. And it's just a really superb service. And it isn't all like creepy. It's not like what a lot of people think of a dating service. It's very professional and above board. And you can look at the girls beforehand, look at their profile, look at their pictures, see what their likes are, their dislikes. Do they have kids? Are they religious? What languages do they speak? What is their interest, their level of education, their occupation, all of that stuff.
And the man initiates the conversation. I mean, the man can decide to write a particular woman, and the woman can write back, and identities are protected, and so you can have some anonymity in terms of the women that you meet online, and it's just an excellent experience. If you decide, well, you want to go there and meet this woman or some other women, or just go meet some nice women, you can go on a Trailer Park Profit Love Connection tour and just go to this country, and the Trailer Park Profit will take care of everything. We'll make sure somebody meets you at the airport. We'll make sure you're in a clean, comfortable, safe hotel, and that when we do have our party, our little get-together, everything's going to be like really cool and classy, and I guarantee you're going to have the time of your life. The U.S. Army is considering replacing thousands of soldiers with robots as it deals with sweeping troop cuts. A senior American officer said he is considering shrinking the size of the Army's brigade combat teams by a quarter. That's a lot. And replacing the lost troops with robots and remote-controlled vehicles. I kind of like that idea. The American military is still far from fielding armies of Terminator-type robot killers, though. I know what you were thinking. Ideas under discussion instead include proposals to see manned lorries and transporters replaced by supply trains of robot vehicles. That makes sense. Generals are studying proposals as the U.S. Army is to slim down from 540,000 to about 490,000 soldiers by the end of next year. Some reports suggest it could dip below 450,000 by the end of the decade. In response, General Robert Cohn, head of the Army's Training and Doctrine Command, is considering shrinking the Army's brigade combat teams to about 400 soldiers, or 4,000 soldiers to 3,000, and using more robots, according to the Defense News, a U.S. military magazine. He told the military symposium, "I've got clear guidance to think about what if you could robotically perform some of the tasks in terms of man-ability, in terms of the future of the force." Oh, man-o-vulnerability. Man-o-vulnerability. So when you have more robots, you have less man-o-vulnerability. Options under discussion, he said, included trains of robot vehicles that would be following vehicles with human drivers in long supply convoys. Like, I wouldn't want to be the lead human, that's for damn sure. Options under discussion, he said, included trains of robot vehicles that would follow vehicles. Yeah, okay. He said that the Army should also allow the lead of the Navy, or follow the lead of the Navy in using technology to cut manpower. When you see the success, frankly, that the Navy has had in terms of lowering the numbers of people on ships, are these functions in the brigade that we could automate, robots or unmanned teaming, and lower the number of people that are involved, given the fact that people are our major cost. And here again, you know, who is disproportionately in the military? Blacks. So who's going to be disproportionately hurt by cuts in the military? Blacks. Huh. Well, it looks like they're definitely thinking about using robots in supply vehicles, according to the IHS Janes report. But still, it sounds like you're going to have a lead vehicle, and it has to be manned. with the unmanned vehicles following behind. Well, who in that God's green earth is going to want to be in that first vehicle? All right, let's see here. What else do we have? That's about it. I mean, we've talked about this kind of thing before. It's just kind of cool to think about. And really, it tells you that the battlefield in the future is going to be dramatically changed. I mean, we know now. I mean, look at the success of drones. Drones have changed the battlefield consideration and calculus by a lot. Intelligence is one of your number one resources in war, obviously. All right, we're not going to do that story. I was thinking about doing this story, but we've done a lot of stories on Valerie Jarrett, and this is just another offering by John Galtier. He has a blog, and he's an investigative blogger, and it's a real good story, and it goes into the history of Valerie Jarrett. In case you don't know, Valerie Jarrett is from Iran, and she was more recently in Chicago, and she was a big part of public housing and just made millions and millions of dollars off of HUD. What is HUD? Housing Urban Authority, or HUD, H-U-D, Housing Urban Department or something. God, I can't even remember right now. You know, I think there's a lot of smoke in this room. I feel like it's kind of going in my head. I'm probably killing myself here doing my show today, but I opened up the windows. It just occurred to me I'm a little lightheaded. But at any rate, I'm not going to do this story, but I would highly recommend it. You can go and see this story on Valerie Jarrett, and I think I've got to tell you, Valerie Jarrett is President Obama's number one advisor. And this woman is the only cabinet member that I can think of in modern times who has her own service security team following her 24/7.
Which I would love to know the reason for that. I'm sure they'd say, well, she's had death threats, and then they would suggest that it could very well be the Tea Party, naturally. And of course, the Tea Party is not that stupid. People that belong to the Tea Party are not going to make threats, generally. Interesting story. Again, I got this from the best of Kane. Herman Cain, of course, was a candidate for the Republican nomination. Ambien can turn you into a murderous zombie. We might have to look into that. Inspiring non-verbal autistic man turns knack for assembling furniture into business. So he has a feel-good story. He always does. Herman Cain is a happy warrior. Oh, get a load of this. Smith & Wesson unveils monster revolver. The case against keeping marijuana illegal. But this story here, this ought to roast you a little bit. And it's written by Dan Calabrese. And it says, it hardly comes as a surprise at this point that the Obama White House brazenly bullies those who threaten their political interests. Check with the IRS, the Tea Party groups, if you have any questions about that. But it's still kind of jarring
when we receive on-the-record confirmation and details about how this crew operates, and we get that today courtesy of the Wall Street Journal, quoting McGraw-Hill CEO Harold McGraw, who got an interesting phone call from the Treasury Secretary, then Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner, the day after Standard & Poor's, of which McGraw-Hill is the parent company, announced the downgrade of the federal government's credit rating in 2011. I remember reporting on that. In an affidavit filed this week in federal court in the Central District of California, McGraw-Hill chairman and CEO Harold McGraw III describes events in the summer of 2011. On Friday, August 5th, Standard & Poor's stripped the United States of its longtime AAA rating. Mr. McGraw says that by Monday morning, August 8th, he was told by an official of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York that Mr. Geithner, who had previously run the New York Fed, was very angry at S&P. Mr. McGraw says that later that morning, Mr. Geithner himself called. Mr. McGraw says that when he returned the call, Mr. Geithner expressed anger at the downgrade. The two men then argued over whether S&P had made a calculation error, with Mr. McGraw saying that the firm had relied on official statistics from the Congressional Budget Office. According to the affidavit, the Treasury Secretary continued to insist that an error had been made and then told Mr. McGraw, "You are accountable for that." In a sworn statement, Mr. McGraw adds that, quote, "As I reported contemporaneously in my colleagues, Mr. Geithner said that you have done an enormous disservice to yourself and to our country, and that the U.S. economy was bad, and that the downgrade had done real damage. S&P's conduct would be looked at very carefully," he said. "Such behavior could not occur," he said, "without the response from the government." All right? Then, and then remember, I mean, don't forget, S&P is a private entity, private company. The government has no business stepping in and telling S&P that they can't do a private assessment of the economy vis-a-vis the downgrade of the credit rating of the United States. Let's see. Mr. Geithner went on to say and expressed anger at the downgrade. In the course of our discussion, he referred to an asserted $2 trillion error in the S&P's work, an error that he had described in various discussions with the media following the announcement of the downgrade. I remember that. He was blaming the downgrade on this improper assessment. Having been briefed on the issue by S&P personnel in the wake of those statements by Mr. Geithner, I explained to him that in relying on the Congressional Budget Office figures as it had, S&P had not made an error. Mr. Geithner said the S&P had made a huge error and that you are accountable for that. He added that S&P had previous history of errors and that this was not the first mistake that he had made. All right, so anyway, that kind of sets the stage for what happened next. And what happened next, let's see if I can find it here in this article. What happened next was that the White House basically went after S&P with all their regulatory might and eventually tried to levy a $5 billion fine on them. And they found some obscure statute that the Justice Department was able to sort of fraudulently, show as the reason for leaning on S&P, and so anyways,
the basic long and short of this whole article is that just because of that downgrade, which other credit agencies have downgraded the United States too, and also, to be fair, some of those ratings have come back out. But what this article demonstrates is that the Obama administration was very vindictive, and they've used every regulatory arm of the government to put pressure on S&P and also to punish them. Oh yeah, the government made good on its threat, filing a $5 billion lawsuit against S&P, claiming all kinds of errors in its issuance of credit ratings. Was this an act of retribution? Sure looks like it. Bloomberg quotes more from McGraw's affidavit. So, it just goes and show you how the Obama administration uses Chicago-style mafia tactics and goes after their detractors. And if you're one of Obama's detractors, then you're going to be scrutinized. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I mean, and it isn't like it's a dictate from the Obama administration, but what it is, it's a culture of corruption. People understand without having to receive an edict from the president that they're helping the president by taking on his detractors. It's like an unspoken will that goes on in the progressive socialist movement, which is to basically the means justify the ends. And I meant to point this out on Monday, and the difference between Sal Alinsky and Dr. Martin Luther King. And President Obama is not anything like Dr. Martin Luther King, because Martin Luther King said in his letter from a Birmingham jail in 1963, he said that the means must justify the ends. And that's why he was so insistent on passive, peaceful protest and resistance. The means must justify the ends. That is Martin Luther King's promise to the American people, and what comes from his heart. He believed that, and it was in the letter, and I don't know if I made enough emphasis on that part of the letter, because it was down after the end of the letter, at the end of the letter, and I was getting a little bit tired by that time. But at any rate, I wanted to make sure, if I didn't mention it on Monday, that Martin Luther King said the means must justify the ends. Now that is a 180-degree difference from Sal Alinsky and Barack Obama. They believe the means justify the ends, or the ends justify the means. Excuse me, I got that confused. So Martin Luther King feels that the means must justify the ends, and Sal Alinsky and Barack Obama say the end justifies the means. So they, under Sal Alinsky and President Obama, you can do anything and everything you want. You can be like the Treasury Secretary Geithner and go after S&P with every available regulatory attack that you can come at them with, because you said something bad about Obama, now we're going to attack you. And they don't care, if they destroy S&P, one of Obama's detractors, then by God, the ends justify the means. If they're able to take down one of those Obama detractors, it doesn't matter how you got to do it, even if you got to cook up a bunch of charges and just tie up S&P with paperwork. It doesn't matter. But that's exactly opposite of what Martin Luther King said. Martin Luther King said the means have to justify the ends, not the ends justifying in the means. And I hope you're able to get your mind around the difference there. It's one of those yin and yang kind of things that you need to understand. And of course, you need to also understand who Obama is and who he's influenced by. And he's influenced by Sal Alinsky, and you may want to go and check out his book,
rules for radicals. And also, President Obama, I want to remind you, worked for a Sal Alinsky Foundation when he got out of law school. That is not a coincidence. And here's another topic. I mean, we were on this all the time, and now I think the media is starting to catch up to the trailer park prophet, and I'm glad. I'm really glad. We have been so far ahead of the curve on this story, and I'm sorry for those longtime listeners. Trailer Park Prophet Show, I know we have to repeat stories or we got to update, and you know, you're just going to have to put up with it. We have so many new listeners now that we never had before, that we have to go back on things. And by the way, I guess I'm remiss. If you want to call into the program, we don't have a lot of callers. When we do have callers, I don't see them on my studio page, but I'm on my studio page right now with Blog Talk Radio, and if you'd like to call in and talk to the Trailer Park Prophet, you can do that by dialing 646-716-8506. Again, that number if you'd like to talk to the Trailer Park Prophet, and who wouldn't? You can do that by dialing 646-716-8506. I'd love to talk to you. So give us a jingle, and we'll put you on the air. And the next story we're going to talk about is something that is really unbelievable, I know, but we got to stay on this story. The headline on this story is Normalizing Pedophilia. Again, Normalizing Pedophilia. And I've been beating this drum for going on 3 years now and telling people that one of the tenets of progressive socialism is pedophilia. And I've gone to great lengths to talk about the history of pedophilia in the progressive socialist movement. I cite Michael Foucault, who is one of the darlings, or as I like to say, one of the founding fathers of the progressive socialist movement, who was openly gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's clear from reading his writing that he is, or was rather, a child molester, and that he was a pedophilia act in his own rights. And in his writings he would suggest that it's time for humanity to revisit the pedophilia issue. And I'm telling you that Michael Foucault is one of the pillars of progressive socialism. And I know I've turned off so many people because I report on this issue, but I don't care. I can't help it. You know, I'm not going to overlook this story. I feel strongly that there ought to be an age of consent, and that age ought to be somewhere around 16, 17. And I'm not going to waver in my opinion. I just can't do that. So at any rate, this article is Pedophilia, the Next Sexual Rights Revolution. If you don't think this is possible, you are gravely mistaken. It is already happening, and the sick thing is that is actually being taken seriously. Check this out. The underlying assumption that has led to the increasing legitimization of same-sex marriage is now fueling a growing effort in academic circles to mainstream pedophilia. Once considered taboo, psychologists are beginning to walk down the same path the LGBT activists established more than 50 years ago, insisting that pedophilia is an inborn sexual orientation, not a learned sexual behavior. All right, now this is important that you understand the distinction here. I mean, basically they're saying that there are certain children that have a particular gene which makes them have a earlier sexual orientation. All right, that's their argument. That's where they hang their hat. and you need to understand how this argument is being formed. I'm going to read this again to you, because you'll be amazed all the psychiatrists, psychologists, and the so-called learned academics that are, I guess the best way to put it, revisiting pedophilia. Once considered taboo, psychologists are beginning to walk down the same path of the LGBT activists established more than 50 years ago, insisting that pedophilia is an inborn sexual orientation, not a learned sexual behavior. If people are born with a sexual attraction to minors, the argument goes their orientation should be accepted as normative and not stigmatized. James Cantor, PhD of clinical psychologist in the Law and Mental Health program at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, a large mental health teaching hospital in Canada, and an assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatric Psychology or Psychiatry at the University of Toronto, is regarded internationally as a leading sexologist studying pedophilia. I mean, boy, I tell you what, now this guy, Dr. Cantor, has some pedigree. Now, what do you think he has to say? Well, I'm going to tell you. Cantor says his research concludes pedophiles share distinct characteristics of brain wiring. He contends some 1 in 5% of all men are predisposed to be primarily sexually attracted to children. 1 in 5, 20%. I mean, what do you think in your own anecdotal experience out there? You think 20% of the men in your life are predisposed to be primarily sexually attracted to children? I find that hard to believe. I mean, I have no evidence to back that up, but holy moly, 20% of men out there are predisposed to be primarily sexually attracted to children. And you wonder how many teachers have had sex with their students. I mean, that's a stunning figure. But I'm telling you, everything I read on pedophilia, it has the same kind of conclusions. So this is really nothing new. In the New York Times report on Cantor's work, December 22nd, reporter Laura Kane noted, pedophilia has been widely viewed as a psychological disorder triggered by early childhood trauma. Right? Oh, we got a video here. Let's see if this video works. I'm really into this topic. We might have a pretty decent video to listen to. I don't know. I probably shouldn't even try this. Why do I try this kind of stuff? You know, I mean, like when you injure a part of your body, like your thumb or your arm, you keep touching.
Rethinking pedophilia. Is it a crime? It's not a disease. It's not a bacteria or virus. It is a mental illness. Okay, it's a cognitive dysfunction. Is it a mental illness?
Oh, that was just playing so good and I just lost it. Oh well. Anyway, you're going to miss a lot of the dramatic presentation by finely produced programming. Alright, here we go. Let's see if I can find out some more of this language here about this. Oh, there's that study. Let's see. Let's see. However, many experts now see Are many experts now, she wrote, see it as biologically rooted condition that does not change like a sexual orientation. So biologically, thanks largely to a decade of research by Dr. James Cantor in the Center for Addiction and Mental Health. Last fall, listen to this. Last fall, the American Psychological Association caused an uproar when the latest edition of its vaulted diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders called Pedophilia a Sexual Orientation. We reported on this story, but this is, again, worth reporting and revisiting, that the American Psychological Association now considers pedophilia sexual orientation. So, you can pretty much say this is a settled question unless people really stand up and get off the sidelines, as Dr. Martin Luther King would say. Well, after inquiries from news organizations, the APA issued a correction stating sexual orientation is not a term, quote, used in diagnostic criteria for pedophilia disorders. So you see, making noise, being the squeaky wheel, does have an effect, and you can do that as an individual. All politics is local. Discover how radicals enlisted the psycho experts sell us corruption. Oh, wait, no, what am I doing here? Oh, in a speech at a meeting with the Association of the Treatment of Sex Abusers, Cantor traced the idea that pedophilia is a characteristic of the brain to the work of Richard von Krafft-Ebing, a Austro-German psychiatrist. Krafft-Ebing defining book Psychopathia Sexuals, first published in 1886, defined various sexual practices including homosexuality, bisexuality, and pedophilia as pathological, determined by mental state that ultimately traced to a brain disorder. So that would be what the old school was about pedophilia. And also they included homosexuality. Now, Cantor reflects the Krafft-Ebing moral judgment and defines various paraphilia behaviors as sexual indicators caused by observable differences in brain structures and following which he calls brain wiring. So, if nothing else, Cantor's making an excuse for pedophiles, claiming that it's in their brain, it's structural, they're hardwired. Cantor's research team at the Current Freud Paleometric Lab conducts experiments with convicted sex offenders. The men are shown nude images of children and adults at various sexes, while a device measures blood flow to their penises, the Times report says. Boy, that gives you a visual, doesn't it? Now, the method is called paleometry, which is invented by none other than Freud himself in the 1950s. Cantor said it accurately measures sexual interest in 90% of the men. Cantor has found pedophiles are shorter, on average, and 3 times more likely to be left-handed or ambidextrous. How about that? And get a load of this. Pedophiles, their IQs are about 10 to 15 points lower, and they are more prone to childhood head injuries. The characteristic Cantor attributes to an inborn clumsiness. Hello? Pedophilia can be caused by inborn clumsiness. Cantor finds that pedophiles are overwhelmingly men, about 1/3 of whom prefer boys, about 1/3 prefer girls, and 1/3 are attracted to both. That's kind of interesting. In an interview with the Canadian show The Agenda on channel TVO, Cantor said pedophilia is not a psychological disorder or something that went wrong in their parenting, but a biological disorder
such as there is something in the brain of a pedophile that is different from what's in the brain of a non-pedophile. In interviews, Cantor declared no one chooses to be attacked or attracted to adults. No one chooses to be attracted to children, affirming you're either are wired that way or you are not. So, the question comes down to if you're hardwired to be a pedophile, and then they're also claiming in this article that children are also, in some instances, wired to be the victims of pedophilia, for lack of a better term, then the natural assumption is that there's nothing wrong as long as you're pre-wired or predestined to be involved in pedophilia on either the child's end or the adult's end. I guess that would be the only natural, logical, reasonable conclusion we should come to. But if we as a society feel like pedophilia is not in the best interest of the children and we pass laws respectively, then what we're doing is setting up a situation where nature, in the eyes of the pedophilia, is somehow being victimized by law, which is a really curious situation for the Lady Justice to try to sort out. Cantor also notes that people attracted to minors aren't all necessarily molesters. Cantor argued, quote, "We will be able to make much more contact with these people, pedophiles, when we indicate to them that we know they didn't choose this. We know they had no opportunity to select what they're going to be attracted to. The best we can do is offer therapy, is to manage their sexual interest." He asserted, quote, "Nobody has ever developed a therapy that's capable of changing somebody's sexual interest." And so here comes the big question. Here's the question you should be asking yourself. If we allow for society to revisit the issue of pedophilia, as Michael Foucault would suggest that we should do, and others, then are we normalizing immorality? Normalizing what traditionally psychology had regarded as sexual pathology was a key strategy driving research of Halfrican into sexual variance. The WND commentator Judith Reisman wrote in her 2010 book, Sexual Sabotage.
Our laws are no longer based on traditional morality, but on tendencies and moral masturbating, impotent, sadistic, misogynistic, bisexual, homosexual, exhibitionist, voyeurist, and child sexual abuse world, she wrote. The truths are difficult to accept, yet crucial. Americans must come to understand what has gone wrong and how we changed from a family-oriented and flawed by horrible country to a sex-obsessed and violent one. Believe it or not, even children's sexual abuse, rape, and incest, which is its apologists euphemistically now call adult child sex and intergenerational sex, are slowly but surely gaining respectability. Copeland noted that many people think having sex with children is a good thing, pointing to the hundreds of thousands of websites at the time offering illegal child pornography worldwide. At the time, child porn generated $3 billion in annual revenues. Now, I think that number is incorrect because if I remember correctly, the overall
porn industry was $3 billion, but maybe it's 6. At any rate, here we are. I mean, in the modern age of the internet, now, I don't know if that number is correct, but even if it isn't correct, but if it is anywhere near that the child porn industry generates $3 billion in the annual revenues, I mean, that's a lot of money. Okay, let's see. It says here that WND reported a book published in 2005 featured multiple PhDs, experts, claiming that sex with children can benefit boys and even serve a mentoring function. I'm sorry, man. That's just twisted. I can't believe any of this. But I can tell you a lot of people do. Let's see here. What else do I want to share with you today on pedophilia? I mean, it's just a little too depressing. I think I probably had enough of this story. And we are on break. You're listening to Daniel Gray. I am the Trailer Park Prophet du jour, broadcasting live on Blog Talk Radio from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado. This is Hump Day with the Prophet. Thanks a lot for being here. I really like this show. I think we got a really good show today. This is kind of interesting. Trying to keep it interesting, everybody. And if you'd like to call into the show, you can do that. Just dial 646-716-8506. And you too can talk to the Trailer Park Prophet. 45 minutes left in the show. Now, this is a great story here, man. I got this story from Breitbart. And here again is another glaring example of the privilege of the leadership class in this country. And most particularly out of Chicago. Now, recently you might remember that Congressman Jesse Jackson, yes, that's Jackson, who is Reverend Jackson, his son, ex-Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., son of Reverend Jesse Jackson, recently had to go to jail because he built his campaign for $200,000, $300,000. At any rate, he went to jail, his wife went to jail, and he had to leave his congressional seat in disgrace. But get a load of this. Even though he's convicted, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., Democrat of Illinois, is scheduled to receive $8,700 per month in government disability pay, as well as a partial federal pension. And this is from his time served in Congress. He's going to receive $45,000 from that. That's generous. That's $8,700 in disability comes thanks to Jackson's sudden development of a mood.
A year ago, I thought we may lose him. So, I mean, it looks like, Jesse got in trouble. He knew he was going to get indicted. He knew he ripped off all this money from his campaign and everything, so he knew he was going down. And really what he did then is decide, okay, I got to have a reason why I did all these bad things, and he was able to blame it on mental illness, and not only that, get a check. And not only that, it's inexcusable. I mean, no congressman should get a federal pension from the federal government. There should be no retirement involved in serving in Congress. But here's another example of the leadership class, and they're making bank.
Not going to do that story. Although I was going to do this story, but I want to touch on it briefly. The story is rural counties scramble at loss of federal dollars. Now, allegedly, various governments around Colorado are facing cuts in what they would have normally received from the federal government, and this amounts to roughly $30 million worth of cuts in federal dollars that would have been doled out to various government entities across Colorado. And, you know, I wrote here that I never believed the Denver Post budget numbers, which I don't, and most likely this was a cut in the proposed rate of increase. Nothing more, nothing less. I mean, really, when you think about the amount of money that the federal government hands out to the states, $31 million is not a lot of money. But what got me around to this story was that a lot of my friends in Crestone and beyond are predicting that pot sales in Colorado are going to be a major economic engine in Colorado in the years to come. And of course, this summer is going to be the first test of that popularity, and we're going to see how many actual pot visitors we get to the state. A lot of people are thinking that there's going to be a lot of marijuana vacationers coming to Colorado, and there's no doubt there's going to be some kind of an increase. Definitely that's going to be the case. But will it actually make a measurable impact on the increase of the sales tax in Colorado? I don't know. I mean, we know there's going to be some increase, but is it going to be dramatic? Is pot tourism going to be the next economic leg of Colorado? Now, historically in Colorado, we have what's called a three-legged economic stool: mining, agriculture, and tourism. Now, we may end up with a four-legged economic stool with agriculture, tourism, mining, and pot. You really think pot is going to become a major contributor to Colorado's economy? I got a feeling it's going to be big. I don't know why. In this moment right now, I mean, I have no way of knowing, and I don't really care. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I know initial sales in Colorado were off the charts. No one ever envisioned that there would be such a demand for pot, and they sold out. Most of the big pot companies sold out all their inventory in 6 days. So, I mean, if that's any indication, then yeah, there's a lot of bent-up demand for pot. I mean, people would probably rather prefer going to a storefront to buy their marijuana than waiting on a street corner for someone to deliver their pot whenever they got around to it. Okay, I thought this was a very interesting posting. And it says here, it's time to secure our border. It's time to stop illegal immigration. And I agree. Build the goddamn fence. They promised it under Reagan. We never got it. They're promising we're going to get it again. But they want everybody that's illegal in the country to get citizenship before they build the fence. And no, that's not going to work. Not this time. You fool me once, fine. But I'm not going to let you fool me again. Oh, here's something that's just absolutely ridiculous. Got a kick out of this. This is all over the internet. You've probably seen it. And it says that Kanye West seriously considering moving out of the U.S. because of racism. And he's thinking about buying his own island. Kanye West is an endless front of amazing observations about our world. His latest comes after punching a teenager in the face for racist comments he yelled at Kanye's wife, Kim Kardashian.
Kanye says rather than have to explain to his daughter how fucked up this world is, he's going to take his money and buy an island and raise her on his racism-free paradise. And what, you don't think he says things like cracker and making fun of white people? You don't think Kanye West isn't racist? While Kardashian was trying to enter a Beverly Hills, California medical building on January 13th, a teenager used a racial slur towards her, calling her a nigger lover. Now, that's inappropriate, but Kanye, you should be sophisticated enough to know that this kid that said this, if this really did happen, is a exception to the rule. Subsequently, admonitions that he shouldn't use the word led the youth actually threatening to murder Kardashian. What? When Kanye West arrived after being informed of this, he walked straight up to the teen and punched him in the face. Now, in the aftermath of the incident, he said he is seriously considering leaving America. Now, I mean, for one thing, so Kanye wasn't even there when this kid allegedly called Kardashian a nigger lover. I don't know, man. This just doesn't seem right. West has said he is dreading explaining the incident to his daughter, whose name is North, because it will lead to seriously negative discussions about American culture, society, and history. West said that he would prefer to leave the U.S. than have regular conversations about racism with his daughter. I mean, you know, oh my God. What? Kanye, man, he's this big, tough street brawler, and, you know, he wants to be made out now as a victim. And the author goes on to say, aren't those discussions going to happen no matter where he raises her? Unless he imagines he can explain how he made millions of dollars in the magical land beyond the rainbow and keep her away from the United States and ignorant of our history until she dies, though he probably really does believe he can do that. Sources told Hollywood Life that after the physical confrontation, West just held his daughter, held her tight, and told her how much he loves her. He told me, man, oh man, you know, I'm dreading the day I've got to break this shit down the north and tell my little girl how fucked up the world is. I don't ever want her to go through what her mother did today. West said further, quote, we've got enough money to buy our own island or some shit. I'll be damned if I'll raise my daughter around ignorance and flat out blatant racism. And, you know, again, I say that Kanye is a blatant racist. But the author goes on to say, he says, I have to say I can't blame Kanye for getting so angry about one racist idiot screaming epithets at his wife. On the other hand, I'm not sure we can trust the judgment of a guy who thinks his dancing on stage is dangerous as being a policeman or a soldier in war. Good point. I bring this up because Kanye West is one of President Obama's best friends, and I swear to God, I just think he's a punk. And I'm disgusted by Kardashian because she was describing the actual smell and taste of her vagina. So I find these two people rather disgusting, and yet they're out there on the public square and in the social world, and I think it's important to report on them. Oh, you know, one story I forgot to report on, which I thought was incredibly interesting, was when, and I may have mentioned it, but I'm not sure, but when Obama was in Hawaii on his Christmas vacation, his staff tried to sign him up for Obamacare just as a sort of a publicity stunt. And they weren't able to sign him up because they couldn't actually validate his existence. And I seen this story, I believe I saw this story all over the place, but I actually saw it on some lamestream media that Obamacare wasn't able to verify
our president's existence. Let's see. How much time? We got a half hour. All right, did I do everything I said I was going to do? Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, so we can kind of look into some other cool stuff. Hey, let's do this. I got this story from Weasel Zippers, and this woman, check it out. It's on my Facebook page, or you can go to Weasel Zippers and check out their blog. I love their blog. And you know, the other thing too is if you quote from Weasel Zippers, you get to say that Weasel Zippers. I mean, it's worth reporting off of their blog because you get to say their name. And their motto is scouring the bowels of the internet. Oh, I love that. Weasel Zippers. And it has a picture of this congressman, and I mean, she looks, you know who she looks like? She actually looks like Mick Jagger's guitarist. What's his name? Keith Richards. I mean, this woman looks like Keith Richards. I mean, this will totally blow your mind. And her name is Representative Rosa Del Lauro. And she's a Democrat from Goblin. I don't know what state that is. It doesn't give me the state. That's kind of dumb. At any rate, she says income inequality poses an existential threat to our nation like slavery and World War II. So, the reason I want to do this story is, man, you got to prepare yourself, man. We're going to have income inequality shoved down our throat. So I'm going to be very careful to come up with stories and some actual statistics so that you're able to brace yourself from this onslaught, because this is definitely going to be a major issue, income inequality, in the next election cycle that we're already in. In fact, we're officially going to be in the 2014 election cycle, the experts say, by March, but, you know, we're knocking on the door. So you're going to hear a lot about this income inequality. And again, oh, she's from Connecticut. Representative Rosa Del Lauro, Democrat from Connecticut, who is worth millions of dollars according to her congressional financial disclosure statement, says Congress needs to tackle income inequality because it poses an existential threat to our nation and our way of life. On the House floor last Wednesday, Del Lauro said, quote, every generation of leaders in this institution has faced their own time of testing, whether it's an economic panic, Great Depression, slavery, Jim Crow, Civil War, World War, Cold War. There are times when our country is confronted with a crisis that poses an existential threat to our nation and our way of life, and Congress needs to stand up and act. Quote, the test of our time is inequality, Del Lauro continued. It's not too much to say that inequality threatens the continued existence of the middle class in America and even the American dream itself. So strap on your asbestos britches there, my fellow lovers of liberty. You are going to be inundated with the social justice and immorality of income inequality. So brace yourself. Now, my friend Kelly Simon said, I've watched her for years now on C-SPAN and wondered every single time she took the floor how much or such a strange person got into Congress and has been able to remain there for 11 elections. Every single trip to the mic on the U.S. House floor by her, I've seen hundreds, resulted in the same completely bizarre, off-topic rant, often than not ending with her getting the gavel, then requesting the Democrat on her side of the debate for more time, being refused, and asking again, and being refused again. She's a weirdo. Yep, I'll probably never visit New Haven, Connecticut, and never get a chance to see the people who for more than 20 years have decided they are best represented by the most alien being in our Congress. And I mean, really, you got to look at her. I mean, she is one memorable looking person. Oh, this is kind of funny. A quote from Satchel Paige. You might remember he was one of the best pitchers in the history of baseball. He was a black guy, but I just love his name, Satchel Paige. And one of his quotes during his lifetime is, "How old would you be if you didn't know how old you are?" You know, that's an interesting thought. You know, how old would you be if you didn't know how old you are? I mean, I just think that's interesting. Let's see. Again, we got something from Waleed Shubat, and he's becoming a regular here on the Trailer Park Prophet Show. And we're on his webpage right now. And it's Waleed Shubat. That's WALID-SHOEBAT. And he was a former Muslim Brotherhood member, and now he's a peace activist. And he writes, "Muslims to Christians, oh, Christians convert to Islam and you will be safe." You guys, some of you out there don't believe me yet, but I'm telling you, this is the real world. Now, this is written by Mr. Shubat, and he says, when Muslim fighters entered the village of Maluda, one of the oldest Christian villages in history, they made this proclamation: "Oh, Christians, convert to Islam and you will be safe." Abdu Sakris, a leader of the National Defense Committees, told Al-Akbar of what the Muslims said after this command was said. Afterwards, Christians were told that they had three options: convert to Islam, pay the jizya, a tribute for non-Muslims, or leave. I mean, that's exactly what the mafia does. The Al-Qaeda Muslims who were attacking Christians in Syria, which imposed the Nazarenes, this is what they call the Christians. This edit, cited by Abdul Rahman Abi Karam, quote, "They will not teach their children the Quran. They will not make a show of the Christian religion nor invite anyone to embrace it. That they will not prevent any of their kin from embracing Islam if they so desire. That they will honor the Muslims and rise up in their assemblies when they wish to take their seats. That they will not imitate them in their dress, either in the cap, turban, sandals, or parting of their hair. They will not ride on saddles, cars in our time, or gird on swords. They will not sell wine. That they will not shave the front of their beards. That they will keep in their own style of dress. Whenever we may be, they will wear girdles around their waist. That they will not display the cross upon the church or display their crosses on their sacred books in the streets of the Muslims. That they will not cite their services in a loud voice when the Muslim is present. That they will not take any slaves that have already been in the possession of Muslims. I mean, you want to know about Muslims and slavery? Well, right now, you just got some indication that Muslims still are pro-slavery. I mean, this is an edict given to Christians in Syria. And that they will violate any of the conditions of this agreement, that they forfeit their protection, and the Muslims are at liberty to treat them as enemies and rebels. You know, there you go. And I mean, in this story here, I mean, here's several other stories of Muslim violence that we could go into. Related post: Muslims attack church, Christians fight back and kill 5 of them. Another story: Muslims savagely murder woman, Muslims whip woman and then stone man to death. Muslims behead man for not praying to Allah. And here again, you know, we have issues all across the globe with Islam, and President Obama is clearly in Islam's camp. And yet, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin,
issued another decree against the Christian genocide that we've been reporting on here at the Trailer Park Prophet. I mean, this is really a bizarre time to be alive, that's for sure. Alright, what do we got here? 240. I think this is kind of funny. And this is an observation I made a long time ago about white people. And I noticed this to go into a lot of various parties, mainly home parties, apartment parties. And I'm always a student of behavior. And I always like to try and come to conclusions, make observations. And one of the observations that I came to a long time ago is that white people can't dance on carpet. And I noticed in my life that black people are more generally in tune to public celebration, and I think they have maybe I'll just say a reason, but I mean, black people tend to dance more. I know that could be seen as racist. I mean, I'm not trying to say that they're better or worse or anything like that. I'm just trying to make a simple observation, and I don't know, I'm trying to be a little bit provocative and funny too, but I came up with this notion that white people can't dance on carpet. And I had this observation back in the 70s. Now, my friend Ling Ling says, is that from you or the male bride service? God, that cracks me up. Well, I'm glad I could crack up Ling Ling. He actually is a chef in Crested Butte at the Eldo, and if you ever go to Crested Butte, I would highly recommend having lunch or dinner in the Eldo, because Ling Ling is a memorable cook. I'm sure you'll enjoy whatever he has ready for you. Okay, let's see. Yeah, you know, I mean, again, I hate to go back to Al-Qaeda, but really, it seems like the lamestream media is totally missing out on this story. And again, this story comes from Breitbart. I think that's the second story we've done today. And the headline is, Obama troop withdrawal leads to Al-Qaeda flags flying over Western Iraq. And I mean, they're showing a picture here of these Al-Qaeda fighters, and they're all dressed in black. Every one of these trucks, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trucks that we can see at least, all filled up with fighters. I mean, you can see their guns, and they're wearing black. You know, they have their face covered up. And every one of these 6 trucks has a black Al-Qaeda flag in the back of it. And I'll also point out that a lot of these trucks look like brand new Toyotas. And I made the comment, who bought these goddamn Toyotas? And supposedly these guys, these Iraqis, or rather these Al-Qaeda fighters, are in Western Iraq. And the article written by Robert Wild goes on to say you could count on one hand the number of combat veterans in Congress that served in Iraq or Afghanistan. Jim Bridenstine, Republican from Oklahoma, former naval pilot and combat veteran in Iraq, told Breitbart News executive chairman host Stephen K. Bannon on Breitbart. He says Bannon, a former Navy destroyer officer whose daughter is also a veteran of West Point, graduate, admitted on Sunday's show that aired on Sirius XM Patriot Channel 125 that he is shocked that there is not more veterans around. The Oklahoma congressman responded to Bannon saying, quote, "I'll tell you what shocks me, how the President of the United States makes political decisions when he should be making decisions in the best interest of our country." I don't know, I guess that's basically what I want to be able to take out of this article, at least try to give you some idea that we have some reputable sources here that there are now Al-Qaeda flags flying in Iraq. And that is
an example of our American policy of leaving before the job is done. All right, here. Yeah, if you have some time, I just realized I had a lot of really wonderful pictures on my Facebook page, Daniel Gray, and there's one picture here of actual used tires being used to make up alligators, and it's really remarkable what this person did. They just took old tires and they cut them up and they configured alligators, and I mean, they're so cool. You can't believe just how cool these things look. I mean they obviously they look like they're made out of tire tread, but they actually do have the same physical shape and texture as alligators. It's so cool. You got to check it out. I think you would really enjoy going to my Facebook page, Daniel Gray. And you can get there too by going to Trailer Park Profit. Oh, and then this story here, this is a good story too. This is a nice companion story. And it comes by way of Town Hall, which I found to be a very reputable blog. And they're claiming, this one author, his name is Daniel Doherty, he's making a real crazy claim in my mind. He says that the Pentagon is considering sending U.S. troops back to the Middle East to help train Iraqi forces, defense officials said on Friday. So actually the Pentagon's talking about us going back to Iraq. It is unclear whether troops would be sent directly into Iraq or possibly conduct training in a nearby country such as Jordan. Quote, this is the Pentagon. We are in continuing discussions about how we can improve the Iraqi military, Army Colonel Steve Warren, a Pentagon spokesman, said Friday. The idea of sending U.S. trainers back to Iraq for the first time since 2011 is one of the Pentagon has emphatically rejected in recent years, but on Friday, Warren offered a carefully worded statement that did not rule out the possibility. The move comes in response to the deepening crisis in Anbar province, where militants have seized parts of Fallujah. In addition to discussions about trainers, the Pentagon is also fast-tracking approval for a shipment of small arms and ammunition to the Iraqi military. Oh my God, Warren said. Another defense official who spoke on condition of anonymity said that the Pentagon also may be considering a larger shipment of arms that would require notification of Congress. We're processing a wide range of requests from the Iraqis for continued support, the defense official said. So it looks like it's even deeper than the headline suggests. And let's see, Gallup recently discovered that more than half Americans say the invasion of Iraq was a mistake. Well, no wonder, when most media has been against Iraq. I mean, how could the American people not be against it? So it's hard to imagine the American people would be back, or would back a strategic, presumably short-term proposal to send U.S. troops back into harm's way, even if for only training. I don't know, just interesting. And of course, the big mistake we made in Iraq when we pulled out in 2011 was not to leave a residual force behind and working out a forces of arm agreement with the Iraqi government. The Obama administration pretty much allowed that nuance to be the reason for them not to have a residual American force in Iraq. And now, of course, Iraq is being threatened by Iran, and we've reported that Iran's flying over Iraq to give armament to the Syrian rebels that are primarily Al-Qaeda. I mean, it's just out of control thanks to President Obama. Alright, let's see here. We got 10 minutes left. Let's see. I wonder if this is what I think it is. Alright, this comes from the New Yorker. And if it's what I think it's going to be, on Sunday afternoon before Thanksgiving, Barack Obama sat in the office cabin of Air Force One wearing a look of heavy laden annoyance. The Affordable Care Act, a signature domestic achievement, and for all its limitations, the most ambitious social legislation since the Great Society, blah, 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 blah. No, I don't really want to do this story. I know what this is now. I thought it was something else. Still, it's a pretty good article. If you got the time, you might want to check it out. We don't have time to do it right now. We only have 10 minutes left in the program, and I have this. Oh, here's an interesting. This is actually the story I wanted to do. And this is this is a long article. It's in the Heritage blog, and the title of the article is Obama describes Al-Qaeda as the JV. Now remember the whole notion that Al-Qaeda is on its heels and GM is saved. I mean, that was part of the actual narrative of the Obama administration. But there's a new study out there, and it. Well, wait. Let's read this excerpt. And it says here, then the president said, we cannot stay at war forever. Again, a nice sentiment, but in the real world, war doesn't end until both sides stop fighting. Al-Qaeda is different today than it was on 9/11, that is true, but the new decentralized version is not to be taken as lightly as Obama seems to. We are still at war, only now with an enemy that is harder to pin down. And the enemy has determined numbers, resources, and capabilities that we have to worry about. In fact, CNN reported earlier this month that Al-Qaeda appears to control more territory in the Arab world than it has done at any time in its history. President Obama needs to drop the cute and misplaced metaphors and recognize these serious threats for what they are. Al-Qaeda controls more land and resources than it ever has in its history. Now, that is not an organization, as Obama would suggest, that is on their heels. Oh, and here, this is a pretty interesting story. This is from National Review, and another example of how disgusting and racist that progressive socialists are against black conservatives. And this is written by Andrew Johnson, good writer. And he reports that a prominent NAACP, that's the National Organization of the Advancement of Colored People, officially recognized Martin Luther King Day by labeling black Senator Tim Scott a puppet for the Republican Party. A ventriloquist can always find a good dummy, said the Reverend William Barber II, the president of the North Carolina's NAACP chapter. The state reports that Barber's remarks came in a speech in Scott's home state of South Carolina. The extreme right wing down here, he said, finds a black guy to be senator and claims he's the first black senator since Reconstruction. And then he goes to Washington, D.C. and articulates the agenda of the Tea Party. Like, if, you know, like balanced budgets are a bad thing. I mean, that's what the Tea Party wants more than anything, balanced budgets, in case you don't know. Last year, Barber gained national attention in the Moral Monday protest in opposition to North Carolina's Republican Governor Pat Corvée. Scott is the first black senator from the South since Reconstruction. He dismissed Barber's remarks as baseless and meaningless rhetoric. You know, that's why I love Tim Scott. You know, he's not going to let this guy get under his skin. You know, he's another one of those guys that understands his position in history, and he's not going to take the bait. And Senator Scott goes on to say, I will honor the memory of Dr. King by being proactive in holding the door for others and serving my fellow man. And Reverend Barber will remind me and others of what not to do, he told the dairy caller. I mean, you know, see, that's why I love Senator Scott. He's a happy warrior. You know, he's sophisticated. Oh, wait, this might be kind of good. Let's go to this. I just noticed this. And we haven't done anything lately from Charles Krauthammer. And again, this is National Review. So I'm kind of interested to see what we have here. And because I love the title, The Future of Entitlement State hinges on Obamacare. And here's something that President Clinton said. He says, even if it takes a change of the law, the president should honor the commitment of the federal government made to those people and let them keep what they got. And that was President Clinton on November 12th saying that President Obama should allow people to be able to keep their insurance policies if they want to. So here's Charles Krauthammer. He says, so the former president asserts that the current president continues to dishonor his if you like your plan, you can keep your plan pledge and calls the Affordable Care Act to be changed despite furious White House resistance to the idea. Coming from the dean of the Democratic Party, this one line marked the breaching of the dam. It legitimized the brewing rebellion of panicked Democrats against Obamacare. Within hours, that rebellion went loudly public. By Thursday, President Obama had been forced into a rear guard holding action, asking insurers to grant a one-year extension on current plans. Now, you know, it's really quite remarkable how like lightning fast things can happen. The damage to the Obama presidency, however, is already done. His approval ratings have fallen to 39%, his lowest ever, and for the first time, a majority consider him untrustworthy. That bond is not easily repaired. At stake, however, is more than the fate of one presidency or of the current Democratic majority in the Senate. At stake is the new, more ambitious social democratic brand of American liberalism introduced by Obama, of which Obamacare is both the symbol and the concrete embodiment. Precisely when the GOP was returning to a more constitutionalist conservatism, committed to reforming, restructuring, and realigning in the welfare state, Obama offered a transformational liberalism designed to expand the role of government, enlarge the welfare state, and create yet a new entitlement. The centerpiece of his vision is, of course, Obamacare, and the most sweeping social reform in the last half-century, affecting 1/6 of the economy and directly touching most vital area of life of every citizen. So basically, Krauthammer goes on to basically state that the Democrats are becoming increasingly worried about the 2014 election and having to go into that election supporting Obamacare. And it could be, I mean, and this is like what I've mentioned before about cracks. And this was another crack in the Obama dam that needed filling. And as more and more Democrats come out against Obamacare or refuse to campaign in their state with Obama, we're going to see the poll numbers for Obama, I think, continue to drop. All right, everybody, drizzle drazzle, drizzle drone, time for this prophet to go do something else. Thanks a lot for being here. I really appreciate it. We'll see you on Friday for Local Friday. I have a special show. We're going to talk about corruption in Crestone and how the same thing can be happening in your community.